Good afternoon, and thank you for joining our drop-in demo series. I'm Gary McAuliffe. I lead the sales team here at Pureport, and I've got Johnson Coughlin, our VP of Solution Engineering, with me as well. Johnson will be conducting the demo portion of today's webinar. At the end of the webinar, we'll actually do a Q&A session, so feel free as you go through to log your questions in the GoToWebinar console, and we'll be glad to take a few questions at the end of the session. We developed these weekly series as an opportunity for you to engage with Pureport in kind of a low pressure way for you to investigate our platform and see how it enables the interconnection of cloud networks. In today's topic, hybrid connectivity to the cloud, we'll show you how easily the Pureport Multicloud Fabric allows customers to connect legacy systems to workloads in the cloud, allowing them to improve their business agility and compete with more cloud-centric businesses. As always, we'll spend the majority of our time today in the demo portion, but I wanted to give a little context before Johnson walks you through the demo. So let's get started. As we all know, the impact of the cloud on the speed of business is staggering. And in Bessemer Venture Partners' annual State of the Cloud report, they always show, next slide, please. They always show this slide that covers the speed at which a cloud-centric business could get to 100 million in annual recurring revenue. 20 years ago, it took Cornerstone 12 years to achieve that goal. And in the last few years, companies like UI Partners and Slack have achieved that same level or that same 100 million ARR in less than 2 years. Why is this happening? Well, obviously, the cloud is dramatically speeding up business. And as you're seeking hybrid cloud solutions, i.e. connecting legacy systems to new workloads in the cloud, and you're having to compete with these cloud-centric businesses, you're candidly already a little bit behind. And you really need every advantage possible and every cloud-native component to help your business move forward faster. Fortunately, the cloud has changed just about every element of IT to help speed this process. In the pre-cloud era, it might have taken 4 to 6 weeks to get compute and storage resources for a new project. Today, 10 minutes. For code deployments in the pre-cloud era, companies often did them 2 to 4 times a year. Today, sometimes companies do 20 to 30 code deployments a day, allowing businesses to launch new capabilities, features, almost every day. And everything in this IT space, generally speaking, now has changed with one exception, and that's network provisioning. Network provisioning in the pre-cloud era could take 60, 90 days to provision new services. Today, candidly, it takes not such different. It's pretty much the same time. How do we know? Well, to be honest with you, next slide, please. We've experienced it. We built our interconnection network to connect our cloud points of presence, and candidly, it took us about 70 days from initial request to final installation. We were really founded Pureport basically to bring a cloud-native approach to these networking challenges and to help companies speed up how they connect their legacy systems to the more agile resources that are contained in the cloud. We call our solution the Multicloud Fabric, and our goal is to seamlessly orchestrate connectivity to the top cloud providers, literally spinning up connectivity in minutes versus days, weeks, or months. The solution is a cloud-native layer 3 platform that speaks to the clouds and the networking protocol that they require, i.e. BGP. We built our solution as a fully programmable modern API architecture, and our software stack leverages general purpose compute. So we ride our software on top of general purpose compute and key cloud on-ramp locations. In other words, we're very close to the cloud. We're not built on big iron routing gear, but actually virtualized routing services built in software containers. You might think of it as a very cloud-like networking architecture. Our goal is to enable the connection of any cloud to any type of connection onto one fabric, enabling our customers to quickly connect clouds and sites so that they can compete in this modern cloud era. So let me walk you through a little bit of kind of how it works. We have 3 categories of connections. One, Cloud Connect, Site Connect, and Port Connect. And we'll talk about each of those in a little bit more detail. And then Johnson will actually show you a deployment of each of one of these connection types and how they connect to the multi-cloud fabric. With Cloud Connect, Pureport provides pre-built access into the major cloud providers, leveraging their private connectivity options like AWS Direct Connect, Azure ExpressRoute, Google Interconnect, and Oracle Fast Connect. You might think of these as network services, as kind of private backdoors into the cloud. Each of these cloud providers has enabled this capability so customers can connect on-premise workloads to those workloads in the cloud over a private network. With speeds ranging anywhere between 50 meg and 10 gig, our platform is located, as I said, near these key cloud on-ramp locations. And as you'll see in the demo today, we can spin up connections to each of these clouds in just a matter of a few minutes. It doesn't require the user to have a heavy network background or require them to spend painless time managing IP addresses or VLANs. It's just easy and extremely fast. And once connected to the clouds, the customers can then connect legacy systems in one of two ways: Site Connect or Port Connect. Site Connect allows our customers to immediately connect to the fabric via a site-level IPsec VPN. Like the cloud connections, these can be spun up in just a matter of minutes and allows immediate access to cloud resources from remote sites, data centers, or corporate offices. While the performance, candidly, is not quite as fast or consistent as a fully private network, it can honestly support many use cases, and more importantly, it can be spun up immediately. Even for that customer that ultimately wants or needs a fully private network connection from their site to the cloud, the Site Connect solution allows them to get started in an afternoon versus waiting the 70 days for provisioning. If the customer ultimately decides they're going to move to a fully private connection, they can either tear down the VPN connection, because we, as part of that, only bill site connection on an hourly basis, or they can leave it as a backup connection for more high availability. And finally, speaking of the private connection options, we have what we call Port Connect. And Port Connect allows customers to privately connect to the Pureport Multicloud Fabric via a cross connect in one of our on-net data centers. We have today about 150. Or they can buy and provision a private circuit from their carrier of choice between their site and the Pureport POP. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, we're still bound by the timeline of the carrier in that case. But, and this is really a key point, the customer can already be up leveraging their cloud resources via Site Connect while they wait for the provisioning time to get the private connection from their site to Pureport and onto the clouds. So you might be thinking, yeah, sure, it would be great to shave off 70 days of my first cloud migration, but how does that fundamentally change my business after that first 70-day benefit? And the key is to think about these capabilities far beyond just the static network connections between sites and clouds. In the future, as an example, you might want your developers to try a new capability in a different cloud, and they have the ability to spin up that connection to the new cloud in minutes versus months. They may want to add new offices. You may have new offices that you bring on, and you want to directly connect them to your resources in the cloud. And again, you can spin up those connections in minutes versus months. But if you buy a company and their primary cloud is a different cloud than yours, and you need to connect those networks, again, the ability to spin up those connections in minutes versus months. And finally, and I think this is a very key point, in the future, as developers and DevOps professionals get more and more involved in the provisioning of cloud resources, with a platform like Pureport, you can give them access to launch their own cloud connections to speed up development cycles, to speed up testing, and to speed up deployment of new applications, helping your business move forward faster. The bottom line is the cloud network needs to keep up with the demands of your business. And candidly, I keep talking about speed and I keep talking about the capabilities. I want to take an opportunity for you to see this in action. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Johnson and let him give you a little bit of a deeper dive overview of the architecture and then a live demo of how quickly these connections can be spun up. Again, as a reminder, please feel free to enter your questions into the console if you have any. We'll be glad to get those at the end of the session. Now I'm going to turn it over to Johnson. Johnson?
Thanks, Gary, and thanks again to everybody that's joined us today. Before I jump into the Pureport console, I want to walk through what I'm about to demonstrate and explain how quickly and easily you can get up and running using our Site Connect VPN as last mile, and then migrate to Port Connect when you're ready, as Gary described. So we'll start with a cloud environment and a customer prem data center. Today I'm going to run the demo using my Google Cloud environment, but you could easily substitute any of our other supported cloud providers. The process is very similar for each of them. So what I'll do is I'll stand up a new Pureport network, and I'll connect to my Google environment via a private partner interconnect circuit. As Gary mentioned, Partner Interconnect is Google's partner version of Cloud Interconnect, and it's very similar to the private connectivity offerings that the other cloud providers have, such as AWS Direct Connect or Azure Express Route. At the end of the day, it's a low latency, high performance private link to your GCP environment that also ends up netting you significant savings on egress data transfer. So from there, we'll connect back to customer prem, again via redundant Site Connect VPN. The VPN will serve as a starting point that we'll replace with private line as part of the demo. Again, the key here is I'm not waiting 30, 60, 90 days for that circuit. I can get in and start using Site Connect, or start using rather, excuse me, Google Cloud Interconnect to get in my Google environment really, really quickly. You'll see me do it in probably less than 15 minutes total. So I'll finish up by showing how to provision a port that can be used in conjunction with private line, or if you're in one of those 150 locations where we're on net, it basically is just a cross connect, and typically most data center providers can get that done within a day or two. And then from there, optionally, you can turn down the VPN. You can leave it running as a backup. A couple of different options. Kind of the takeaway is that the VPN and the Site Connect VPN and the Port Connect can both run simultaneously in parallel, really giving you a hitless migration path to go from that VPN for last mile to the fully private line for last mile. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into the demo. So what's on my screen now is the Pureport Customer Self-Service Console. This is the graphical interface that our customers can use to interact with our platform. That said, we're API first. What that means is we actually build new features into our API before they show up in the console. Everything I do in the console is actually making an API call, and we expose that API for our customers to use directly. We've got a full API reference here, with the ability also to actually try out and run commands live in your environment. But at the end of the day, the idea is that those customers that are used to writing to an API can write directly to our API, or use our integrations with Terraform or Ansible if they're already using those tools as part of their orchestration strategy. So to get started, I'm going to create my new network. We'll give it a name. We'll click OK, and what's going to come up on my screen is our 5 core locations. As I think Gary mentioned, these are the 5 locations where we map physically to the cloud on-ramps. So these are locations where we maintain our own physical gear and network connectivity into all those cloud providers, as well as a fully HA backbone between each of those locations in a full mesh scenario for customers that need multi-regional connectivity. So the first thing I'm going to do is build out my Google Cloud Interconnect to my existing GCP environment. I'm going to choose the region where that environment exists, which is US East 4. There in Ashburn. I'm going to choose a speed, and we'll choose high availability as the HA option. Next, I'm going to need my pairing keys from the Google Cloud Interconnect circuits, which I've already stood up. I'll just paste those in real quickly. And we could go in, customize the networks, customize a whole bunch of other stuff. At the end of the day, one of the beautiful things about our platform is that it really makes all of that stuff really easy for folks that don't want to get in and turn every knob there is to turn. We're going to reach out via API to Google, negotiate the IP addresses for BGP peering, and as part of that API call, I actually end up turning up those circuits and completing the BGP peering. At the end of this process, which typically takes 30, 40 seconds, what we'll see is that my two Google circuits, which are sitting here in my environment, will get IP addresses assigned. You can see the primary has already got IPs assigned. You can see that we've been identified as the partner provider. And again, within just a few more seconds, the second set of IP addresses get assigned. And at this point, the circuits are showing down, while the Google Cloud gateways are configured with those IP addresses with the rest of the peering information necessary to complete BGP peering. And typically within, jumping back to the Pureport console now, that API call is done. Typically within 2 or 3 more minutes, the gateways will be spun up. Again, in a highly available state, we'll spin up 2 routing gateways on separate engines and across discrete network paths for a fully HA connection to Google. And from there, BGP will come up and we'll start to see routes populate. While we're waiting for that BGP peering to complete, I'm going to go ahead and add a connection back to customer premises via our SiteConnect VPN. So we'll choose Site IPsec VPN as the connection type, choose location of Washington, D.C. Again, I'm going to do an HA connection. I'll do this one at 50 megs to match the Google connection. Going to need the IP address on the outside of my customer prem router or firewall. If you do have 2 separate DIA circuits or separate commercial broadband circuits, you can actually specify separate IP addresses for the peering on your side of that connection and take advantage of the redundancy that you have by having those separate DIA circuits. If you've got a blended offering from your data center provider, or if you've only got a single circuit, maybe you've only got a single IP address, which is actually what I have on my end of this connection. One more quick thing. For the VPN, we do support BGP. We support static routing. We also support the older policy-based tunnels. A lot of folks still like these. Either they've got older gear that maybe doesn't support the route-based tunnel, maybe it doesn't support BGP, or maybe their security group, has a policy in place where they have to use a policy-based tunnel versus a route-based tunnel. Again, the idea is we want to be as cross-platform and as customer-friendly as we can, and kind of support the older methods as well as the newer. I'm going to use BGP as my routing method though. Plug in my ASN. Again, I'm not going to specify my networks. I'm not going to turn on NAT. It's another webinar to talk about our NAT functionality. Again, just real quickly, with the idea of cross-platform and backward compatibility in mind, we support IPv1 and v2. We support a very wide range of different security transform sets, including some of the older DH group 2 and 5, for example, which are kind of known to be unsafe, but maybe you've got an older platform that only supports those. We mark them as unsafe in the console, but we do go ahead and make sure that they're available for those customers that need them. But the defaults are kind of a lowest common denominator, sane or fully secure config by current standards, and that's what we'll go with. Finally, I'm going to plug in a pre-shared key. Typically, when I'm doing these demos, I let the system auto-generate those for me and surface them in a console so I can copy and paste. But I've actually got my customer Chrome device pre-configured on my side with those keys that I plugged in. And the last thing we'll do is click Add Connection. And you can see that those 2 routing gateways are being spun up. Within just a few seconds here, we should see the public IP for the first gateway get populated in the console. I'm going to grab that one real quick. And the secondary gateway should be up within another 30 seconds or so. And get a public IP assigned on that side as well. From there, what I'm going to do is actually jump into my customer prem firewall. So I'll go ahead and make sure my My CLI hasn't timed out on me. Probably just another 10 seconds or so for that second IP address to populate. There we go. We'll grab that guy, jump over, reconfigure my VPN. I'll stop by the GUI on the way back. There we see my primary tunnel has just come up. Secondary tunnel is still waiting for that gateway to be spun up on the Pureport side. Should be up within just a few more moments. And checking on the Google side real quickly, by the way, we'll see that both those interconnects are now showing as up, which means that BGP peering is completed. And within, actually we already see the routes populating from my Google environment on each of those. So there's the route for my Google environment, and again, within just another 30 seconds or so, we should be seeing the routes populating from the customer prem device as well.
So basically 70 days to 7 minutes. Is that what we're looking?
Roughly. That's roughly it. That's roughly it, Gary. All right, so while we're waiting for BGP to finish coming up, and in the interest of time, we'll just jump in and quickly show the port functionality. If you were, again, in one of those 150 data centers where we're lit, you could just get a cross connect within a couple of days. If you're waiting for private line, maybe you want to spin up that Site Connect VPN first. And once your private line has been delivered, you probably want to meet us in the same facility where you're jumping onto the cloud on-ramp. So I'll choose Equinix DC2. I'll choose a speed for my connection, or for the port actually, and this is a really important distinction. I can do a 1 or a 10 or a 40 gig port and still only do a 50 meg connection if that's all I need to start, and then scale that as needed. We'll do a 1 gig connection. Again, you can do primary or secondary or both from an HA perspective. So if you've got just a single line coming in, you might just do primary. If you've got 2 lines coming in, obviously you'd want to do a primary and a secondary. Choose a billing term, month to month, or a 1 or 2 year contract to receive a discount on that line. And then the last thing is we'd give it a name. And really importantly, we would pop in a customer name for the LOA. Typically, that's going to be the carrier if you're meeting us with private line from a carrier. If you're actually the tenant in that facility, then that would be your company name. And the last thing that we would do is just pop in those fields and then click add. I'm not actually going to complete that step. I've got a couple of ports already spun up here. It's important to note that when you do this, we actually provision in real time. We provision a port and generate an LOA on your behalf that you can download or print out and hand it to your data center provider to run that cross connect for you. And again, all of that's done in real time. And then from there, we would come back into our network at a port connect. And again, you can match the port speed that you gave, or you can start with a lower speed connection and move to the higher speed at a later date. You choose my primary and my secondary ports, and we'll specify primary and secondary VLANs. We support BGP for redundant ports. If it were a non-HA port, we could actually support static routing for that type, and should have static routing support for the redundant type as well. I'll pop in my customer ASN, and again, click Add Connection. And we'll be adding that connection to that port. Then at that point, once the cross connect is done, I would configure my customer prem router. And at this point, I've got my my Port Connect and my site IPsec VPN, both running in parallel. And so through the kind of the magic of BGP, if assuming that that's your chosen routing method, but even without it, we're running iBGP on the inside of the network. Once that connection comes up on the private line, you can then come back in and either turn down or maybe decrease the speed of your VPN. You can leave it in place as a backup or a failover. In this case, I'm just gonna delete it and turn it down. And what we'll see back on my customer prem device here, again, both those tunnels are up. Literally, as we deprovision that Site Connect VPN, those two tunnels should be going down just momentarily here as dead peer detection kicks in. So hopefully everybody sees the kind of the speed with which you can get started with your your private cloud connectivity immediately, literally within just a few minutes, and not have to wait for that private line, but then migrate to it when the time's right. So while we're waiting for the VPN connection to finish tearing down, Gary, were there any questions that came in?
Sorry about that. Just as a reminder, if you have questions, feel free to type them into the console. Looks like we've got a couple. First question, asking about Site Connect. How do you know if Site Connect performance will be good enough for your application? And I don't know that we'll go into a deep technical conversation there, Johnson. Maybe I'll just take that one because I think it's an important point. One of the nice things about Site Connect is it can be spun up quickly and you're only committing an hour at a time. So from that perspective, it's an easy and great opportunity for you to test performance of your cloud app as connecting back to your hybrid customer site. And if you determine that performance in that testing is not good enough and you need to provision a private line, obviously Johnson showed you how to go about that. But there's no long-term commitment. You can do it in an afternoon, and you can really use the testing and the easy spin-up capability to be able to test. Because candidly, Johnson and I aren't going to be able to comment specifically on whether the app or the requirements of your app will meet the performance characteristics of that Site Connect VPN, but you can surely test it with really no long-term obligation. I think that's it as far as questions. And we've been trying to keep these to right at 30 minutes. We've gone on over a couple of minutes today, but we're really appreciative of the time you spent with us. We'd love to talk to you in more detail as you have questions. We'll send a recording of this webinar that you're welcome to forward to friends and colleagues. So look for that later today. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I'll get you with my team, and we'd be glad to do a deeper dive discussion and/or demo. We're going to continue this series for the next couple of weeks. Next week, we'll be talking about multi-cloud network as code with Terraform, and the following, we're going to do a deeper dive on Google Cloud Interconnect. So really appreciate it. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks. Thanks for your time.